So I wanted to talk about emotional abuse. So this is when a person, the abuser, subjects someone else to toxic behaviour, intentional or otherwise, in order to break that person down and control them. And this can go hand in hand with other types of abuse: physical abuse, economic abuse, sexual abuse, etc. It can be just as damaging, just as devastating in its own right. And this is reflected actually in law by the Serious Crime Act 2015, which is punishable basically by law, and perpetrators can spend up to 5 years in prison. So, who is an abuser? Well, an abuser can be anyone. It doesn't need to be a romantic partner. It can be a boss, it can be a parent, a sibling, a friend, any age, any gender, all walks of life. It can be absolutely anyone. And, something to bear in mind is, you might have an idea in your mind about what an abuser is, but, this person on the outside could appear to be a happy person, someone who's popular, someone who's charming. It doesn't need to be the kind of stereotypical abuser, or someone who's, negative or, disliked, and that kind of thing. So this can also be, for example, it will often be someone who has also been subjected to abuse, or witnessed it growing up. That can happen, that often is the case, and that is obviously very sad, but that's definitely not an excuse for you to be subjected to this. We're all deserving of being in a healthy and loving relationship, one that makes us feel safe and content and happy and protected. Why do these people abuse? Because they've maybe been subjected to it themselves, perhaps. They're kind of lacking in self-esteem, they feel insecure, and they want to kind of exert, this power and have control over someone else, really, not necessarily their partner, as I've said. So how do we know if it's abuse? We all, or many of us, do know someone that might be a bit insensitive, or that might have a mental health issue, or that once in a while might be inappropriate, or say something that's inappropriate or something. Even ourselves, so how do we recognize this? Because often it can be difficult to recognize, it can be subtle, and this is also a reason why perhaps people also do end up brushing it off, because they think, oh, maybe it's my imagination, or maybe I'm being too sensitive, or these kind of things. I guess the difference is, in a healthy relationship, or once in a while something might be said or whatever, but in a healthy relationship, for example, you might have an apology or a discussion about it, or you might say, hey, listen, I wasn't really happy with what happened there, and hopefully the other person will say, oh, I'm really sorry, like I didn't realise, or yeah, I was out of order, or you can repair things. It be like a kind of once in a while happening. With emotional abuse, it's basically a persistent, a consistent pattern of this kind of these toxic behaviours, which can also leave the person on the receiving end feeling like they're treading on eggshells. They might even change their behaviour so as not to upset the other person, so as not to upset the abuser, basically. They might end up covering the other person's tracks, lying for the other person, because, for example, family and friends do notice. They might notice a change, or they might say, oh, how are things going with blah blah, or whatever. And you might end up saying, oh yeah, he's just really stressed at the moment, or she's just really stressed. It's not always a man. There's this kind of misconception often that it's a man with the woman being abused, which, yes, that happens, but it can also be the other way around, of course. They might even, start developing mental health problems. They might start changing their appearance. They might start feeling insecure, anxious, So there aren't many signs as well, but I've just put together really like a list of 10, really, like the top 10 you know, to look out for. So I'd say the first one is conflict and chaos. You know, a person that is, you know, emotionally abusing you, you'll notice that there usually tends to be a lot of conflict and chaos surrounding them. So that manifests as where, you know, itself in them being often kind of unpredictable or having sudden outbursts of, you know, bad moods and things, which, you know, sometimes we do suffer from mental health problems, and that can be normal as well. However, the difference is that with someone that's, you know, emotionally abusing you, or you're at the hands of someone that's emotionally abusive, is that often these outbursts might be aggressive or intimidating, or you might feel threatened, you know, and often, you know, there'll be no apology either for these kind of outbursts, and this kind of conflict and arguments. And even if there is, again, often it might be an apology, but it could be that it ends up being your fault. So, you know, oh, I'm really sorry, you know, blah, blah, blah. But, you know that that makes me upset, or, you know, for some reason it'll be turned around to be your fault. So it's kind of an apology, but it's not really a direct apology, you know, so there'll be a lot of conflict and chaos there. The next one is invalidation. So yeah, number 2 is invalidation. That's a very big one. So someone that is emotionally abusive will not validate your thoughts, your feelings, your ideas, your points of view, your emotions, you know. They may tell you that, you know, oh, you're being silly, or you're being stupid, you shouldn't feel like that. They'll tell you how you should and you shouldn't feel. You know, basically what it is that they're lacking that kind of empathy to see things from your point of view, basically. Or to even lack that kind of empathy to even say, I don't understand how you know, how you can feel like that, but, you know, okay, I accept that, you know. Basically, they just won't accept it. They'll refuse it. They might even get angry and say, how can you think like that? And just kind of deny it. And you know, your kind of way of thinking, or your views or feelings, emotions, won't be accepted in their own right or valued. So you won't feel like an individual, you know. You might even be told, for example, if you're upset about something, oh, you're being too sensitive, and then, you know, it'll get brushed off or whatever. The other thing is, you know, this could extend to, for example, special occasions, birthdays, achievements. You know, you might have had a job promotion, it's not kind of mentioned or anything. And, you know, usually if we're in a healthy relationship, or even, again, not necessarily with a romantic partner, but, you know, these things are acknowledged and celebrated and shared. And, you know, often with someone who's emotionally abusive, you know, part of that invalidation is just to kind of discount it, like it's not important, like who cares, you know. Number 3 would be unrealistic expectations. So unrealistic expectations, so yes, you'll have very high standards to meet, and this person will very often, if not always, but, you know, very often be dissatisfied. You know, nothing will be good enough to please this person, okay? And you'll always be trying to make this person happy, you know. And it's kind of like it's like this kind of challenge, like this person will always have to find a fault in something. This could kind of manifest itself in constant, you know, continuous criticism. So it could be, for example, that your hair never looks quite good enough, even though you've made the effort to dress up because you're going out for the evening or whatever. I don't know, I'm just picking little examples here. It could be absolutely anything. It could be at work, you know, targets, you know, and your boss kind of has, you know, these expectations that you're always going to reach and exceed your target, and they might be unrealistic targets and everything. So basically what's to come out of this is that you're never going to feel good enough, and nothing that you do will be deemed as good enough, you know, because this person is always going to focus on the negative and criticize you and say it's not good enough, and always be looking at ways where you could improve. You know, it's unrealistic expectations, and also just generally just being demanding as well, which is unrealistic. You know, just someone that's just constantly being demanding all the time, and you're just like consumed by this kind of someone else being so demanding that you literally can't keep up, and you're what happens in the end is that you might constantly be trying, and this is wearing away at your self-esteem, you know, and your self-worth, and you thinking, oh, I'm not good enough because I can't make this person happy. You're not going to make this person happy. No one is going to make this person happy. And even if someone perhaps did make this person happy, this person is probably going to say that this person didn't make, you know, whoever it was, it didn't make them happy anyway. So it's kind of like a losing battle. It's a shame, but it is a losing battle. So when you get into that cycle, just remember that you have probably done way more. Like, you've done so much, you've done more than enough, okay? But this person is just not going to be happy. I'm really sorry to say that. The next thing is number 4, emotional blackmail. So this person is going to blackmail you emotionally. They're going to make you feel guilty about things. They're going to you know, guilt trip you, basically. They're going to say, oh, why can't you do that for me? You know that if you don't do this, I'll be really upset. Or you remember that time I did this for you? You should do this for me. And usually it's something that you can't compare anyway. It might be that they're looking for you to cross your boundaries, or you know, you might have certain morals or beliefs that you don't want to compromise, but this person will guilt trip you so much that you know, twist things and everything, and you'll just feel like, oh my goodness, you know, I have to do this for this person, because if I don't do it, they'll be really upset and it'll really affect them. And you know, quite often they'll play the victim in this situation to try to get their way, basically. The next thing is boundaries. So someone that isn't emotionally abusing you will generally, you know, very often not have this concept of boundaries. So this is actually a really big one, number 5, boundaries. This can manifest itself in, you know, having a partner or a friend or whoever it is, just like checking your things, monitoring your things, you know, not letting you have any privacy, walking into your bedroom. You know, it could be even a flatmate, for example, that's like quite toxic to be around. You might be in a toxic situation with them. They might just end up borrowing all your private stuff, going through your things, walking into your bedroom. It could be a parent, for example, that needs to know every piece of private information about your life, and when you kind of withhold something, they might get angry or upset. But it, you know, everybody is entitled to their privacy, and like everyone is, even the person doing the abusing, like everyone is entitled to their privacy and their boundaries. And a really good way actually of testing it out is by challenging the person that's breaking your boundaries. You know, in a healthy relationship, you know, you might say, listen, I wasn't really comfortable with you doing whatever it was. And the person that you're challenging, in a healthy scenario, would probably say, oh my gosh, I'm really sorry. Like, yeah, that actually, do you know what? Thinking about it, that was kind of out of order. I shouldn't have done that. Someone that is quite toxic and emotionally abusive will most likely get angry with you and say, well, why can't I look? Well, what are you trying to hide? Or, you know, why can't, you know, that kind of thing. They'll challenge you and they'll get angry about it. And that's quite a good indicator of someone that is, you know, emotionally abusive in that sense, you know, combined with all these other factors. It might also be things like people, you know, partner, whatever, checking your Facebook messages, or it can be a whole load of things, but yeah. Number 6 is insults. So these can be masked, you know, this could be in a passive aggressive way. It doesn't need to be that someone's being angry and insulting you and being offensive. It can be someone that's doing this in a joking way, but it could be really offensive jokes, but because they're laughing, when you might get upset or something, they might say, oh, you're being too sensitive, I was only joking. But it might be really hurtful things. They might even target things that they know that you are sensitive about, you know, and they're kind of waiting to get that reaction. That could also be, for example, if you're at work, let's say, and you have a boss that's bullying you or something, or colleagues, they might humiliate you. It could be like anything from, you know, group emails or humiliating you in front of other people. Again, this needs to be taken in context with everything else, not just the one-off occasional email, of course. But yeah, the next thing is isolation. So the abuser will often try to isolate their victim, you know, isolate them, break them down, and you know, by isolating you, they have control over you. And this isolation, it can come in a number of ways. It can be manifested in a number of ways. You can notice it. For example, again, it might not be really directly like you can't see your friends, you have to stay at home, which often it could be actually that. But it could also be done in a much more of a subtle way, like, oh, you know, I saw so and so, like your friends or your family, and they've been saying this about you, or just trying to make you feel isolated, you know. So don't always assume that it's going to be obvious. It can also be very subtle things as well. You know, and kind of what goes hand in hand in this as well is jealousy. So, you know, they might kind of say, oh, but you know, I'm jealous, it's just because I really love you, and you might kind of brush it off as them really loving you or being overprotective and that kind of thing. But you know, they might be wanting to spend all their time with you, or to be going out doing whatever they want to do, but saying that you have to stay at home or whatever. But yeah, isolation is a big one. The next one, number 8, is acting superior and entitled. So definitely someone who is, you know, who has this kind of behaviours will think that they are superior. They're superior to, you know, everyone else. Basically, they'll think that their ideas, the best ideas, that they know better, that everyone else is stupid. They might get angry and have a short fuse if someone else is trying to put their point of view across, also because they're invalidating them. But yeah, they'll just think that they know best, and that, you know, their way or the highway, basically. Number 9 is gaslighting. So you might have heard of this term. This is when a person is led to believe that their thoughts, opinions, feelings, emotions, everything is incorrect, and that their memory is incorrect, and they start questioning their own sanity, really, their own memory, you know, if everything they're doing is right, maybe they got it wrong. And you know, a person that's emotionally abusing you or that is doing gaslighting will do this by, for example, just denying things, saying things like, that didn't happen, I didn't do that, no it didn't, oh you're exaggerating. You know, it might be something that's happened that's really bad, but they're just going to play it down and just make out that you're the one with the problem, not me. I mean, what are you talking about? And brush it off. And again, like I said before, it could be quite subtle. And in the meantime of all these things, they might be throwing in really nice compliments and stuff. You know, it's all part of the game. It's to throw you off guard. And you're like, well, this terrible thing happened, but now they just kind of said something really nice. So it must be my imagination, you know. But yeah, gaslighting, you know, can be very subtle. It's extremely manipulative because you just start to question, did that really happen? Maybe they are right. Maybe it is me. I'm the problem. Maybe it's my memory, and all these kind of things. The next one, number 10, is stonewalling. So this is basically like silent treatment, and this can come out of the blue, or it could be on purpose, and it could last for however long. It could last for days, weeks, hours, whatever it is. And this will involve just having the silent treatment. That will also could involve not having eye contact or anything, basically dismissing you like you're invisible, you know, and you end up feeling like you're so unimportant and invisible, and you might even get scared, like, are they in a bad mood? Should I talk to them? Should I not? You start questioning yourself, like, what have I done wrong? And all of this kind of stuff. So it can also be used as a kind of punishment as well. Like, for example, you might have had an argument which may not have even been your fault, but you know, they will just then stonewall you, and then you're getting like punished, basically. So those are like 10 signs. There are lots of other things, but I just wanted to bring you, yeah, the top 10, let's say. I will do another video about how to cope if you're finding yourself in this situation, things you can do. I mean, the first thing, just to, in a nutshell, just as a bite-size, not a nutshell, because there's lots of different things. I mean, as a bite-size thing is, number one, it's not your fault. And I know it's easier said than done to think it's not my fault, but you know, from what we think and what we feel inside can be two very, very different things. So number one, it's not your fault. And if you need to tell yourself that 100 times a day, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, that's not going to solve everything. But I'm just saying, please keep reminding yourself it's not your fault, okay? However much you feel like it might be your fault, it's not. The other thing is, do try to confide in someone, you know, a colleague, a friend, a family member, somebody, so that you've got a different, you know, you've got a different point of view, someone else's opinion. You can kind of start to take that weight off. You've also got someone that can potentially check in with you to check that you're okay. The other thing is to call for help, seek help. And there are, I'm going to put some numbers and contact numbers, websites and things like that in the comments below this video, or in the caption, whatever it is. But for example, the National Domestic Abuse Hotline, that's open 24 hours a day. There's also like a chat service, a texting service and things like that. Women's Aid, the Men's Advice Line, and Live Fear Free. That's just some of them, but there are definitely hotlines and things you can call. But yeah, I mean, I'm just wishing you all the best. I'm sending you lots of positive vibes, lots of strength. It's not easy to be dealing with this. This is a very difficult situation to be in. It's very dangerous for mental health, for physical health. But yeah, so watch out for my next video. Please do go and talk to someone, seek help of some kind. You can always send me a message as well. All right, take care.